Well, it's great to connect with you, Mr. John. I saw you in Class Clown at Berkeley Rep over 10 years ago, and I thought this is a brilliant man. So, yeah, I love.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's what a great way to start my day.
Yeah, I bought books, I bought all the stuff you got. So I just appreciate your writing and what you bring to the world. So, congrats on the Green Veil. I was absorbed and just fascinated with. Thought it's great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Because when Aaron Rappaport, the creator of the series, told me what he'd been doing some research and bumped into this fact that in the 1950s, the US government was involved in taking Native American children from their homes and putting them up for adoption with the white families so they couldn't inherit the land and would give it to oil companies or other corporations. And I was like, wait a minute, what? How's this possible? And it went on into the 1970s. So when we started creating this series, I was like, I'm in. I want to be a part of this because this story needs to be told.
Yeah, it's such a historic historic crimes. Before I go on, I want to talk all about this, but we're in the midst of a historic crime. So I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on the recent verdict for Trump.
Ah, finally, the Teflon Don is not so Teflon. It was incredible. It was incredible. What a moment. Yeah, I mean that he can't vote for himself now because he's a felon. He can't pardon himself because it's a state crime. It's like finally some justice. The man is not above the law. No one is. Finally.
Right, right. And I appreciate what you bring, what you brought, like when you've been on the Daily Show. I wonder if you'd ever want to have your own kind of show like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I would love it. I'm gonna go back on the Daily Show this fall in September. I'm gonna go on a few more times doing my spot talking, and I can't wait to do that.
That's awesome. That's great. So, there you are, you with Aram, your co-producer on this, and you've gone to all the streamers, Netflix and Amazon, and they were afraid to take it on. Is that right?
Well, let's say that. Let's say that. I mean, we went to every streamer in Hollywood and everyone, and they all loved it. They made a lot of offers to Aaron to direct other things, but not this show. And it just goes to the symptoms of Hollywood. I mean, there's a lot of talk of inclusion and equity and parity, but is it really happening? Because this was Native American subject matter with a Latin lead, dark subject matter. I mean, they couldn't do it. I mean, it's so trippy to me that we had to create our own platform, the network, and you can get it on the network.stream, and it's free. And if you're like me, anything free is the best that could be. If yet we have ads, of course, because we have to pay for it somehow.
Right.
But yeah, it's so crazy. I mean, we Latin people are 20% of the population. You know, we over-index at the U.S. box office. We're almost a third of subscribers on streamers, almost a third of sports fans, and less than 6% of the leads, less than 1% of the executives of the stories being told. It's just not parity. I mean, white people are 58.9% of the population, and yet 100% of the executives. I would say the majority of the stories, the majority of the leads. It's not. Things are not fair. They're just not.
Right, right. You are pretty much outspoken and candid about, a lot of things. Gordon, your character, is not like. I mean, he's outspoken, but he's more reserved. He's got everything like tucked in. So I was wondering how that was embodying that role. Was it hard to shake off because it's so opposite of you? I think it seems.
Yeah, I mean the character. He's a despicable, disgusting reptilian human being. I hopefully am not that. uh,
You're not.
so when I embody a character like that, you hope. The hope is I don't need people to like me as this character, but I want them to understand how somebody becomes this way. And yeah, it was hard to shake off. At the end of the day, you start acting out in your family, and things start, you start acting in weird ways and sometimes being mean and stuff. And so I had to isolate myself because you just can't control it. And yeah, when it was done, I went on vacation. I was partying. I was doing anything possible to shake that character off because it does stay with you for a while, and you have to like try to get those those thoughts and that darkness out of you. But what's interesting is there are a lot of Gordons. I mean, the head of the Proud Boys was a Latin man, and Fuentes, who's the head of the White Nationalist Party, is a Cuban guy. So this is not, far fetched. This is all based on historical fact.
Right. And from my understanding, like, and I think things I've read, Gordon is so suppressed his heritage and his nationality, correct?
Well, he's trying to pass. Like a lot of Latin people have tried to pass, and other groups have too. When you could, and so this is the 1950s when everybody was repressed, even white women. Everybody was repressed in the 50s. And what I'm excited about though is, you hardly ever see us, Latin people, I mean, in any period stuff. I mean, we're just not included in anything, which is crazy because the first European language spoken in America was not English, but Spanish. So we've been here since at least 1492. And the Oscar is based on the body of a Mexican actor, Emilio Fernandez. And yet, where are we? We're still so far behind, still so excluded. We were the first villains in silent film. Cecil B. DeMille's Birth of a Nation, Latin people are the villains. And we were the extras in silent westerns. The Latino actors would go in LA because the majority of the people there were Latinos, would go to the casting tree in Echo Park, and they would be cast as extras and villains in all the silent westerns. So we've been part of cinema. We're definitely part of American culture, but we're missing in all the period storytelling and in regular storytelling as well.
Right. And in a lot of your work, I love what you do in bringing out your culture and your heritage, the works that you've done on stage that talk about your family. You started out, you dived into being a performer. Was there a kind of pivot in the last 10 or years? When was there a moment where it's like, I'm going to speak out more about this stuff? Or maybe you always have, but it seems like we're in a time where we need people to speak out.
Yeah, I was always socially conscious. I was just not aware of what was going on. I was a young man. I was very idealistic. I believed in a meritocracy. And slowly but slowly, that bubble burst, and I started to realize, I was in NYU. I was with DB Sweeney and Andrew McCarthy in the same class, and I would see that they would go to like 5 to 10 auditions a day, and I would go to one every 5 months for a drug dealer or a villain of some kind of character that died in the first few minutes of the movie. And I realized that no matter how much I studied, no matter how much I worked on myself, I would never have the same opportunities as them, because back then the casting breakdown was what they would give you, what movies were available and offered. And it was like Jim Crow. They would be like white actor, white doctor, white lawyer. And eventually every 5 months, you see Latin drug dealer. And I'd ask my agent, please, can I go there, do my American Buffalo monologue? Can I do my Charlie Brown comedy monologue? And they wouldn't see you. They wouldn't see you no matter what you did, because that's the way things were. And I realized, oh wow, it's not going to be fair. It's never going to be fair. And then, but I was able to turn it into good, because I said, Hollywood isn't for me. They're not for me. They're never going to be. So I didn't buy into it. I never did. So I started writing my own stuff and realized that I had to come up with my own opportunities. And obviously, there's a huge Latin audience out there, and white people and black people who love Latin content. So yeah, so look at Encanto, #1 Disney movie in its history, all Latin cast, Latin created. There are people who love Latin content.
Right. And, Bruno, you're Bruno. So,
I'm Bruno, but we don't talk about him.
right, right. You would love to do a sequel, yes?
Oh my God, I'm like chomping on the bit. It's like, come on, man, come on.
If you had to wave a magic wand, if you had your way, what would you like to see happen?
I like them to only talk about Bruno.
So it's just a Bruno-centric Encanto. Encanto. Yeah. I like And then Bruno suggesting don't talk about this other person. Maybe, yeah.
Right. Don't talk about anybody else but me. Yeah.
All
Instead of a
right.
narcissistic Bruno, he becomes too. Yeah, that's what power does. Corrupt, doesn't it?
Right, right. Well, kind of circling back to that, I mean, how do you take care of yourself amidst things that are going on in today's world? I mean, where do you see the state of our political system and where it might be headed? How do you take care of yourself? Those are kind of two questions.
True, true, true. But I think I can parse them out. I take care of myself because you have to self-soothe and you have to self-comfort in many, many ways. Obviously hanging out with my family is one of them big ones with my kids that are grown. And it's so great to hang out with your kids when they're grown because you see that everything you thought was being rejected or not heard is actually paying off. It's mind-boggling and wonderful to see. And then my friends, my friends are my big comfort. And obviously, I like my Knicks, even though we're out of the Eastern Conference, and I play tennis, so sports is a big deal for me. And hanging out in sports, that's my escapism. Where America is headed, obviously, we're in a very precarious point in our American experiment, our democracy, our original democracy here. That's based on Native American thought, by the way. Look it up. But to
Right.
protect, because everybody thinks it's the Greeks, but no, this type of modern democracy was because of Native Iroquois nations and Kandiarank, a great Native American leader that went to Paris and taught them because Europe was all top-down rule, top to bottom rule. They didn't understand the individual thought and individual freedoms. That's Native American thought. So that's fascinating. But to protect this, we got to all vote. I mean, I know young people are very disappointed in Biden and what's going on. But at the end, you're going to have to vote for democracy to save it, and then hopefully find somebody better in 4 years. But we have to vote against Trump because I feel like he will be the end of democracy. He will never be. He'll never leave. He's figured out a way how to destroy our government, how to fire everyone and have no one at the White House, and he'll be the only one running things with his cronies.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We are coming up on time, so I have a few kind of fun questions to ask you. What's some of the best advice you've been given about life, either from your family or colleagues?
Oh wow, I get a lot of advice. I don't know if it's because I need it or, but I welcome it. Perseverance from Barry Levinson. Just persevere. He said, just persevere, John. The way to win this whole rat race in Hollywood is just persevere. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to persevere.
I like that. I like that. That's good for me to hear today. So thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, thank you. And then one last question for you. What's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
Lately about myself. I mean, I'm always learning stuff about myself. I think I never gave myself enough credit for the things that I do or I did or I accomplished. I was always chasing something else. I'm not sure if that's just a product of my childhood or the way I was raised or being a Latin man in America, but I'm trying to give myself my flowers, and that's what I try to do. Make sure I give myself my own flowers.
I like that. That's really great. That's really great. And any parting thoughts on what you love people to know about the Green Veil?
Oh yeah, you got to watch it. It's a very sexy piece. It's very dark. It's an important piece. I think they're gonna love the way it's shot, the way it's acted and directed. I think you don't want to miss it. It's all bingeable right now on the network dot stream, and it's free. No credit card needed.
That's even better. So
I know, I know that's an important fact.
thank you so much for your candidness and your honesty and what you're putting out there in the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Greg. What a pleasure.